You have a faith with millions of followers, a founder from the 13th century, and centuries of bitter division. But what if all of that conflict, all that fragmentation, actually stemmed from a single, powerful misunderstanding? Today we're diving into how one misreading of a core idea may have fractured Nichiren Buddhism. So when you look at Nichiren Buddhism today, it's this incredibly complex world, right? You've got everything from traditional temples to huge modern global movements. But all this diversity has often led to some really deep fragmentation, creating walls and conflict between different groups for hundreds of years. But what if it's not as complicated as it looks? What if the root cause wasn't dozens of different issues, but a single, fundamental misreading of what its founder, Nichiren, actually meant when it came to one of the most basic parts of Buddhism, ethics? Okay, so this brings us right to the heart of it, the great misunderstanding itself. It's basically a clash between two completely opposite ways of looking at Nichiren's teachings on how to live a good, ethical life. And here it is, laid out plain and simple. On one hand, you have the popular myth that Nichiren just threw out traditional Buddhist ethics, saying they were useless for a spiritually corrupt era called Mappo. But the reality? It's pretty much the exact opposite. He didn't reject them, he integrated them. He argued that true devotion to the Lotus Sutra was the ultimate way to fulfill those very ethics. So how on earth did two such wildly different interpretations pop up? Well, a big part of the problem is that many of Nichiren's most famous writings were, really intense and fiery. If you just read them literally, without any historical context, you get a very, very skewed picture of what he was saying. And that context is absolutely everything. You have to remember, Nichiren was living in 13th century Japan. This was a time of huge turmoil. We're talking famine, political chaos, the works. He looked at the established Buddhist institutions and saw them as corrupt, as failing the people. So his harsh words, they weren't aimed at Buddhist principles themselves, but at the institutions that were failing to live up to them. So if we look past all that fiery rhetoric, a very different picture starts to emerge. We find that Nichiren's actual position was way more nuanced. It was built on this model of integration, not rejection. You can see this so clearly in his personal letters to his followers. In this one, he's advising a samurai disciple that, hey, wisdom isn't about hiding from the world. It's about deeply understanding it. He was intensely focused on how his followers behaved in their everyday lives, in their families, at their jobs, in their communities. And here's the core idea, wrapped up in this beautiful metaphor. For Nichiren, the Lotus Sutra wasn't meant to replace other teachings. It was the vast ocean that holds all of them. It was the ultimate context, the place where every other genuine Buddhist practice finds its real, true meaning. This integration model then leads us to what is maybe Nichiren's most profound and original contribution to Buddhist thought. It's a concept he called actual proof. So, actual proof, or gensho in Japanese, is this idea that real spiritual practice isn't just some private internal feeling. No, it has to produce real observable evidence. The proof of your inner awakening is supposed to become visible in your character, in your behavior, and in the positive impact you have on the world around you. And this is a truly radical idea. I mean, think about the traditional Buddhist path for a second. First, you work on perfecting your ethical behavior, then you do the deep practice, and finally, you might achieve awakening. Nichiren completely flips this on its head. He argued that through faith and practice, awakening comes first, and then your ethical behavior emerges naturally as the result, as the actual proof. In this model, your ethics literally become the mirror that reflects your inner state. So if your conduct doesn't actually change for the better, it's a sign that the mirror is cracked, so to speak. It means your practice hasn't gone deep enough to cause a real transformation yet. So what happens when this really crucial, nuanced idea gets misunderstood, or worse, just ignored? Well, the consequences have been pretty severe, and they've really shaped the divisions we see in the faith today. A huge part of the problem comes from this widely circulated but totally inaccurate paraphrase. It makes it sound like Nichiren was giving everyone a free pass on ethics, Like he was promoting this faith-alone idea, where your outward behavior just doesn't matter. But what Nichiren actually wrote was a teaching point for beginners who were struggling in a really difficult time. He was saying, look, instead of getting bogged down in all these complex formal rules, just start with sincere chanting. That sincere practice would build the foundation from which good ethical behavior would then naturally grow. It's all about where you start, not about ethics being irrelevant. And this misreading had real, tangible consequences. It fueled sectarian splits, like the massive 1991 division between the Nichiren Shoshu priesthood and the Soka Gakkai lay organization. In some groups, it's been used to justify authoritarian leadership and has really watered down ethical accountability, creating this environment where faith alone is seen as enough, regardless of your moral conduct. But here's the hopeful part. If a misreading helped create all these divisions, could a corrected, more accurate understanding offer a path toward healing and maybe even unity? So what would that path forward actually look like? Well, it really starts with building bridges. That means acknowledging past mistakes, getting scholars and believers from different groups to work together, and opening up a real dialogue with the wider Buddhist world. And ultimately, it means reforming institutions to make sure that ethical conduct, that actual proof, is put right back at the heart of the practice where it belongs. So if there's one single point to take away from all this, it's this word, integration. The whole goal is to see Nichiren's teachings not as a rejection of 2,500 years of Buddhist wisdom, but as that single, unifying ocean that fulfills all of it. Which leaves us with a final, really powerful question. If one big misunderstanding could do so much to divide a faith, can a clearer, more accurate understanding truly heal those wounds and maybe, just maybe, bring it back together? The possibility, at least, offers a lot of hope for a very different future.